Alien girl laughed. Sure, he'd squeal. Then, broke her hand on his abs of steel, reaches its dramatic apex when Naira and John broadcast General Dreos's treachery throughout Nexus Prime. As his war-mongering words echo across the station, they battle Blackar operatives in a desperate firefight. When a lethal energy bolt targets Naira, John throws himself between them, their partnership cementing as they expose the conspiracy, threatening both civilizations. The burning orange sky of Nexus Prime cast its warm glow through the transparent corridors of the rotating space station. Commander Naira Vex stretched her neck as she gazed through the reinforced glass metal windows at the bustling diplomatic quarter below. 3 days of stalled negotiations between the Cryoran Alliance and Earth Union had left her tense and irritable. As head of security for the Cryoran delegation, she'd been forced to stand at attention for hours, watching diplomats circle around mining rights in the station's tourist sector, like predators sizing up prey. Naira ran her orange-hued fingers through her silver-white ponytail, the motion accentuating the defined muscles of her arms. Like all Kriorans, she possessed superior physical strength, capable of bench-pressing 3 times her body weight without enhancement tech. It was one of many reasons her people viewed humans as inferior specimens, relying on technology to compensate for their evolutionary shortcomings. The peace between their species remained fragile at best. Each side harbored suspicions that the other was concealing military capabilities or territorial ambitions. Naira had been briefed extensively on maintaining a professional demeanor. But after 72 hours of diplomatic deadlock, she desperately needed to release some tension. "Recreational level access," she commanded the elevator, her voice clipped with military precision. Perhaps some physical exertion would clear her mind. The humans had their own delegation security detail, weaklings, in her estimation, but she'd been trained to view them as potential threats nonetheless. The lift descended smoothly, opening onto a sprawling entertainment complex filled with diverse species from across known space. She wandered past holographic theaters and zero-gravity lounges until a weathered sign caught her eye. Iron Paradise Gym, Earth-style fitness. Curious. She stepped through the entrance. The gym was dimly lit compared to Krioran training facilities, with antiquated equipment scattered throughout. Various beings occupied machines with glowing interfaces and neural connectors. But what caught Naira's attention was a human male in the corner, lifting what appeared to be primitive metal discs attached to a bar. Captain John Reed counted silently as he completed his 10th repetition. As a major in the Earth Defense Force, he maintained a rigorous training regimen, even while stationed at Nexus Prime. His assignment to monitor heavy weapons smuggling around the station kept him busy, but never too busy for his daily workout. His muscled torso glistened with sweat as he set the barbell down. Naira approached, unable to hide her amusement. "Do humans not have enhancement chambers?" she called out, her voice carrying a lilting accent. "Why still use stones and metal like this?" John turned, wiping his brow with a small towel. His eyes met hers, calm, unimpressed. "Not everything needs to be automated or enhanced, Commander." He recognized her insignia immediately. "Sometimes the old ways build strength that technology can't." "I doubt that." Naira circled him, making no attempt to hide her assessment of his physique. "Your species always claims to value natural strength, yet you remain physically inferior." John's expression hardened slightly. "If you think we're so weak, then test it yourself." He straightened his posture, his abdominal muscles tightening visibly. "Punch me in the stomach. Go ahead." Naira laughed, the sound like crystal bells. "Are you serious? I could rupture your internal organs." "I don't think you will," John replied, his confidence unwavering. "One punch. Use your left hand." Sizing him up, Naira calculated the appropriate force, enough to prove her point without causing serious injury. This human was either foolish or hiding something. Either way, she'd play along. With casual ease, she stepped forward and drove her left fist toward his exposed abdomen. The impact sent a shockwave of pain through her hand. Instead of yielding flesh, her knuckles met what felt like solid steel. A sickening crack echoed through the gym as two metacarpal bones in her hand shattered against his abdominal wall. Naira howled, cradling her broken hand. "What in the 7 moons?" Her orange skin flushed a deeper shade as pain and humiliation washed over her. John hadn't even flinched. He looked down at her with a hint of smugness. "Not all human strength comes from technology, Commander. Some of us still believe in good old-fashioned training." "Impossible," she hissed through gritted teeth. "No human abs should be that hard without genetic optimization." "Let's get that hand looked at," John said, his voice softening slightly as he reached for a communication device. "Nexus Medical is on level 3. 20 minutes later, Naira sat fuming in the medical bay as a 4-armed Taurian doctor examined her broken hand. The pain had subsided to a dull throb, thanks to a localized anesthetic, but her pride remained severely wounded. 2 fractures, the Taurian doctor announced, manipulating holographic imagery of her hand bones. "Clean breaks, fortunately. We'll apply a regenerative stimulator that should accelerate healing." His 4 hands worked in perfect coordination, attaching a small device to her wrist that hummed with energy. "How long?" Naira asked tersely. 3 days for functional use, 5 for complete healing. The doctor stepped back. "I recommend against punching any more humans in the meantime." Naira scowled. As she exited the examination room, she found John Reed waiting in the lobby, leaning casually against a wall. His gym clothes had been replaced by an Earth Defense Force uniform that accentuated his broad shoulders. "Came to gloat?" she asked bitterly. "Actually, I came to offer you a drink," he replied. "Diplomatic courtesy." "I don't need your pity." "It's not pity. It's scientific curiosity." John's expression remained neutral. "I'm interested in comparing training methodologies between our species. For purely diplomatic reasons. Of course." Naira hesitated. Her superiors would expect her to gather intelligence on Earth military personnel when opportunities arose. Perhaps this was worth pursuing, if only to understand how this human had defied her expectations. "1 drink," she conceded, "for diplomatic purposes." They found a quiet corner in a lounge that catered to multiple species. John surprised her by ordering Cryorian fire wine, a beverage few non-Cryorians could tolerate. "You've done your homework," she observed as the glowing amber liquid was poured. "I make it a point to understand the cultures I interact with," he replied, raising his glass. "To peaceful negotiations." The wine burned pleasantly down her throat. "Now explain your condition. Those abdominals should not have withstood my strike." John took a measured sip before answering. "While your people focused on genetic enhancement, we explored different paths. Some of us prefer intensive physical training combined with specialized nutrition and discipline. That doesn't explain the hardness. I've broken concrete with less effort. Isometric tension training, muscle control, and yes, some bioengineered supplements." He smiled slightly. "We're not completely opposed to enhancement, just selective about methods." As they conversed, Naira found herself reluctantly impressed by John's knowledge of Cryorian culture and military history. Their discussion shifted from confrontational to collegial as they discovered mutual respect for each other's dedication to their respective duties. "We're not so different," John noted after their second drink. "We both serve to protect our people's interests." "Perhaps," Naira admitted, "though your diplomatic team seems determined to claim mining rights that rightfully belong to the Cryorian Alliance. And your team seems equally determined to exclude Earth corporations from resources that should benefit multiple species." They locked eyes across the table, the tension between them transforming into something more complex, a mixture of professional rivalry and personal intrigue that Naira found surprisingly stimulating. Later that night, as she returned to her quarters, Naira's communication device chimed with an encrypted message. The sender identification revealed General Draus, her commanding officer and head of Cryoran intelligence operations. The message was brief but disturbing. Approach Earth delegation, especially Major Reed. Discover what they're hiding. Sabotage if necessary. Naira stared at the screen, her mind racing. Just hours ago, she'd begun to develop a genuine rapport with John Reed. Now, she was being ordered to spy on him and potentially undermine the negotiations he supported. The conflict between duty and her emerging feelings created a knot in her stomach that even the finest Cryorian fire wine couldn't dissolve. The following morning, John contacted her with unexpected news. "I'm tracking a lead on the Blacker Syndicate," he explained via secure channel. "They're moving heavy weapons through Earth territory. Could use a second set of eyes if you're interested." The Blacker Syndicate. The name matched intelligence that Cryoran security had been monitoring. Despite her conflicting orders from General Draus, Naira saw an opportunity. If she could help disrupt a weapons smuggling operation, she'd be serving Cryoran interest while maintaining her cover. "I'll assist," she replied. "Where do we meet?" "Service Corridor J17, 30 minutes. Dress inconspicuously." The service corridors of Nexus Prime formed a labyrinthine network beneath the station's polished public spaces. Dim blue emergency lights cast eerie shadows across exposed pipes and conduits. The air smelled of lubricant and recycled oxygen, a stark contrast to the scented atmospheres of the diplomatic quarters. John was waiting when she arrived, dressed in dark civilian clothing. He handed her a small scanning device. It's calibrated to detect specific energy signatures from Blacker weapons. We'll follow the trail through these maintenance tunnels. They moved silently through the corridors, pausing occasionally to check readings. Naira felt strangely comfortable working alongside John, their movements falling into natural synchronization, despite having never trained together. "How's the hand?" he asked quietly, as they paused at a junction. "Functional," she replied, flexing her fingers inside the healing device. "The Taurian doctor knows his craft." "Dr. Tora? He's the best xenobiologist in the sector. Rumor has it he's studying cross-species genetics." Naira raised an eyebrow. "A controversial field." "The future of space colonization may depend on such research," John said, checking his scanner. "Signals stronger this way." As they delved deeper into the maintenance level, John explained his investigation. "Blackar's been supplying both sides with black market weapons for years. They profit from tension between our peoples. And you think they're manipulating the current negotiations?" "I know they are. What I don't know is who they're working with inside our delegations." This information aligned with Naira's suspicions. General Draus had been unusually insistent about maintaining a hardline position in the negotiations, even when compromise seemed possible. Could he be connected to Blacker? Their search led them to a sealed storage compartment. John produced an electronic bypass tool and worked on the locking mechanism while Naira kept watch. The intimacy of their position, John's shoulder brushing against hers in the narrow corridor, sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. The door slid open, revealing crates marked with Earth Defense Force insignia. John scanned them, his expression darkening. "These are forgeries. Perfect counterfeits of EDF weapon crates. But the serial numbers don't match our registry." "False flag operation," Naira concluded. "Someone wants to implicate Earth forces in illegal arms dealing, or create the impression that we're preparing for conflict." Their eyes met in the dim light, mutual understanding passing between them. Before they could investigate further, a noise from the corridor alerted them to approaching security drones. "We need to move," John whispered, pulling Naira into a narrow maintenance shaft as the mechanized patrol passed. Their bodies pressed together in the confined space, his breath warm against her neck. For a moment, Naira forgot about her mission, her broken hand, even her duty to Cryoran, aware only of the human's proximity and the unexpected desire it stirred. When they emerged, both seemed slightly flustered. "We should report this to our superiors," John said, his voice rougher than before. Naira hesitated. "My superiors may not be trustworthy. I received unusual orders regarding you specifically." John's expression hardened. "What kind of orders?" "To gather intelligence. Potentially sabotage your efforts." She met his gaze directly. "I'm telling you this because I believe something larger is at play. The Blackar evidence suggests manipulation at high levels." Her admission clearly surprised him, but after a moment's consideration, John nodded. "I've had similar concerns about certain elements in Earth Command. Admiral Perkins has been pushing for military solutions that seemed unnecessary." "We need more evidence before approaching anyone," Naira said. "Continue the investigation quietly." "Agreed. Meet tomorrow, same location." Over the next 2 days, Naira and John pieced together a disturbing pattern. Blackar operatives had infiltrated both delegations, planting misinformation and encouraging hawkish responses. They narrowly avoided detection several times, once hiding together in a maintenance closet for nearly an hour, while Blackar security swept the area. During these close encounters, their professional relationship evolved. Shoulders touched, hands brushed, gazes lingered. Neither acknowledged the growing attraction verbally, but it hung between them, like an unspoken promise. On the 3rd day, Naira received a troubling report. "Grand Nexus Hotel, diplomatic summit level," she told John when they met. "Blackar representatives are meeting with someone high-ranking. Tonight." "That's where Admiral Perkins is staying," John said grimly. "And he's been acting increasingly paranoid about Cryoran intentions." "We need to observe this meeting," Naira decided. "If Perkins is being manipulated." "Or if he's complicit," John added. "Either way, we need proof." Accessing the Grand Nexus Hotel required careful planning. The upper levels housed the most prestigious diplomatic accommodations, with advanced security systems and human guards. With help from Dr. Tora, who provided medical authorization codes, they infiltrated through service entrances reserved for healthcare emergencies. "The meeting is scheduled in Private Conference Room 12, Naira whispered, as they navigated the opulent corridors. Dr. Tora's transmitters are ready to capture any conversation. They placed miniature recording devices around the conference room perimeter, then positioned themselves in an adjacent server room with one-way glass overlooking the meeting space. Through the glass, they could observe without being seen. Naira's breath caught when General Draios entered the conference room, followed by 2 Blackar operatives in formal business attire. Minutes later, Admiral Perkins arrived, looking tense and suspicious. "What is this about?" Perkins demanded. "Your message claimed you had critical intelligence." Draios gestured smoothly. "Please, Admiral. What I'm about to share affects both our people's security." The Blackar representatives activated a holographic display showing what appeared to be Cryoran military formations near Earth colony worlds. "These movements were detected yesterday," Draios explained. "But not by my people, by yours." Perkins frowned. "I've received no such intelligence." "Because it's being suppressed," Draios said. "Elements within your own command structure are hiding Cryoran aggression to maintain the appearance of peaceful negotiations." In the server room, Naira's eyes widened. "He's lying," she whispered to John. "Those formations are computer-generated. The fleet patterns are all wrong." John nodded grimly. "He's manipulating Perkins, creating a false narrative." They watched as the Blackar operatives presented Perkins with data chips. "This contains the complete intelligence package," one said, "including communications intercepts proving the conspiracy." Perkins still looked uncertain. "If this is authentic—" "It demands immediate action," Draios interrupted. "A preemptive strike before the Cryoran fleet can mobilize further." Naira's hand tightened around John's arm. "He's engineering a war," she breathed. "My own general." "We need to broadcast this meeting," John decided. "Dr. Tora's transmitters can be linked to the station's public announcement system." Working quickly, They accessed the server room controls. Dr. Tora had provided instructions for connecting the recording devices to Nexus Prime's communication network. As Dryos continued his presentation of fabricated evidence, John initiated the transmission. Suddenly, Dryos's voice echoed throughout the station. No choice but to eliminate potential resistance. The Earth colonies must be neutralized before they can pose a threat. The general's head snapped up, realizing his words were being broadcast. His eyes darted to the server room window, somehow sensing their presence. "Security breach!" he shouted. "Find them!" "Time to move," John urged. But the door burst open as 4 armed Blackar operatives stormed the server room. John reacted instantly, activating a personal shield that absorbed the first energy bolt. He charged the nearest attacker, driving him against a console with bone-crushing force. Naira drew her sidearm, firing with her good hand and dropping 2 more operatives. The 4th attacker circled behind her, raising his weapon. John shouted a warning, throwing himself between Naira and the attacker. The energy bolt struck his reinforced jacket, dissipating harmlessly, but the impact drove him to his knees. Naira whirled, her broken hand screaming in protest as she struck the attacker with the butt of her weapon. He crumpled to the floor, unconscious. In the corridor outside, chaos erupted as Admiral Perkins emerged from the conference room, his own weapon drawn. To their surprise, he tackled General Dryos as the Cryoran attempted to flee. "You manipulative bastard," Perkins growled, pinning Dryos against the wall. "I suspected something was wrong with your intelligence. But this..." He gestured toward a nearby monitor, where Dryos's incriminating words continued to play across the station's information network. Throughout Nexus Prime, the recording spread like wildfire. Security forces from both Earth and Cryoran delegations converged on the Grand Nexus Hotel, expressions of shock and betrayal on their faces as they heard Dryos confess to fabricating evidence and manipulating both sides. Admiral Perkins took command of the situation, ordering the arrest of General Dryos and the Blackar operatives. "This recording proves they've been creating false intelligence to drive our peoples toward war," he announced to the gathered security teams. "A war that would profit only them." The political fallout was immediate and far-reaching. Senior Cryoran officials distanced themselves from Dryos, while Earth politicians who had supported aggressive policies suddenly backpedaled. The foundation for new, transparent peace negotiations was laid amid the rubble of Dryos's conspiracy. As Dryos was led away in restraints, he struggled against his captors. "Everything I did was to protect Cryoran interests," he shouted. "Humans cannot be trusted with shared resources." His protests fell on deaf ears. The Interplanetary Tribunal quickly charged him with treason and conspiracy to incite interstellar war. The evidence against him, combined with testimonies from Perkins and John, was overwhelming. In the aftermath, Naira found John in a quiet observation lounge overlooking the station's rotating ring. Both were exhausted, their wounds still fresh from the confrontation. "Your hand?" he asked, noticing she'd removed the healing device. "Functional," she replied with a small smile. "Like its owner." "I never properly thanked you," John said. "Going against your commanding officer couldn't have been easy." "Loyalty to truth outweighs loyalty to individuals," Naira said. "Even generals." They stood in companionable silence, watching the stars beyond the station. The distance between them had shrunk, not just physically, but culturally and emotionally. What had begun with a broken hand had evolved into something neither had anticipated. "The negotiations resume tomorrow," John noted, "with new representatives from both sides. And new perspectives, perhaps." Their hands found each other in the starlight, orange fingers intertwining with tan ones. The touch conveyed what words could not yet express, a bridge between worlds that had seemed impossibly distant just days before. 9 weeks later, Dr. Lynn Tora's medical laboratory buzzed with activity. The 4-armed xenobiologist moved efficiently between diagnostic equipment, his eyes bright with excitement as he examined the results of Naira's latest scan. "Extraordinary," he murmured. "The fetal development is proceeding perfectly. Heart rate stable. Cellular division normal." Naira lay on the examination table, her hand resting protectively over her still flat abdomen. Is the hybrid development still viable?" "More than viable," Dr. Tora confirmed. "It's thriving. The first successful human cryoran embryo in recorded history." The news of Naira's pregnancy had sent shockwaves through both Earth and cryoran societies. What most scientists had believed biologically impossible had somehow occurred, a hybrid conception that defied genetic expectations. Some attributed it to Dr. Tora's groundbreaking research in xenobiology, others to the unique physiological compatibility between Naira and John specifically. Whatever the cause, the implications were profound. Almost overnight, perceptions shifted from incompatible species to potential partners. Governments that had been preparing for conflict now established hybrid harmony commissions to study the process and build cultural exchange programs. John entered the laboratory, his face breaking into a smile at the positive news. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," Naira assured him, reaching for his hand. Their relationship had blossomed in the aftermath of the conspiracy, transforming from reluctant allies to devoted partners. What began as physical attraction had deepened into profound respect and love. 2 days later, Naira stood beside John at the dedication ceremony for the new Earth Cryoran Cultural Exchange Center on Nexus Prime. She wore formal Cryoran diplomatic attire, while John represented Earth in his dress uniform. Before hundreds of delegates from both worlds, they publicly acknowledged their relationship and the child Naira carried, a living symbol of the hope for alliance. "This child represents not just our personal future," Naira told the assembled dignitaries, "but a new chapter in relations between our peoples. What General Dryos feared most has become our greatest strength, the ability to find common ground despite our differences." John squeezed her hand as applause filled the chamber. "From a broken hand to a healing universe," he whispered. "Not bad for an inferior human, huh?" Naira laughed, the sound like crystal bells. "Your abs are still unnaturally hard. And your punch still needs work," he teased back. As the ceremony continued, Naira reflected on the journey that had brought them here. What began as a casual challenge in a gym had unraveled a conspiracy and forged an unprecedented bond between worlds. Her hand had healed long ago, but the impact of that first punch continued to ripple outward, transforming not just her life, but the future of two civilizations. In the 9th week of her pregnancy, Naira addressed the Galactic Assembly, sharing her experience and nurturing hope for a new era of cooperation. Nexus Prime had transformed from a potential flashpoint to a symbol of peace. A hybrid culture was gradually emerging, from education to cuisine, art to athletics. Their child, already being called the first bridge between worlds, was expected to herald an era of military, economic, and scientific collaboration that neither species could have achieved alone. From the remains of conspiracy and conflict, a new future was taking shape, one punch at a time. As Naira finished her address to thunderous applause, she caught John's eye in the audience. His smile carried the same confidence she'd seen that first day in the gym, when he'd challenged her to test his strength. She'd broken her hand then, but in return, she'd gained a partner, a cause, and a future she could never have imagined. The next morning, as they stood together overlooking the rotating rings of Nexus Prime, John placed his hand gently on her abdomen. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly. "About punching you," Naira smiled. "Never. Best broken hand I ever had. I meant about everything that followed. The conflict with Dryos, the publicity, the scrutiny." Naira considered this. "There will always be those who resist change. Some cryorans still view our relationship as betrayal. Some humans See it as a threat to your species' identity. And yet here we are. Here we are, she agreed, building something stronger than either of us could alone. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. Just as her powerful cryoren genetics and John's resilient human physiology had combined in their child. Their complementary perspectives were creating something new in the political sphere, a vision of cooperation that transcended old rivalries. The station's artificial sunlight bathed them in warm orange hues as a new day cycle began. Below them, Earth and cryoren delegates walked side by side through the promenades and gardens, their former suspicions giving way to cautious optimism. I received a communication from the Cryoran High Council this morning, Naira said. They're establishing a permanent diplomatic academy here on Nexus Prime. They want us to help design the curriculum. John raised an eyebrow. Both of us. That's unprecedented. As is this, she said, gesturing to her abdomen. We're writing new rules now. Later that evening, they attended a smaller gathering of scientific and military leaders from both worlds. Dr. Tora presented his preliminary findings on their child's development, projecting holographic images of the hybrid cellular structure. The fusion of human and cryoran genetic material has created something truly remarkable, the four-armed xenobiologist explained. The embryo exhibits enhanced cellular regeneration from the cryoran side, combined with the adaptive immune responses typical of humans. In essence, it's taking the best traits from both parents. Admiral Perkins, now heading the Joint Security Initiative between Earth and cryoran forces, nodded appreciatively. Just as our combined security approach is proving more effective than either in isolation, the conversation shifted to practical matters. Joint military exercises, shared intelligence networks, coordinated response protocols for dealing with threats like the Black R Syndicate. What would have been unthinkable before the conspiracy was now proceeding with remarkable efficiency. As the meeting concluded, Naira and John found themselves alone on one of the station's observation decks. Through the transparent dome, they could see both Earthships and cryoran vessels docked side by side. Did you ever imagine this? John asked, his arm around her shoulders. When you walked into that gym and saw me lifting those primitive weights? Naira laughed softly. I imagined putting you in your place, showing you cryoran superiority. Instead, I broke my hand and found my heart. Poetic for a security officer. I contain multitudes, she quipped, using an Earth expression she'd learned from him. The future stretched before them, uncertain in details but clear in direction. Their child would be born into a solar system transformed by their unlikely connection, a living embodiment of the principle that strength comes in many forms. As they stood watching the stars, Naira reflected on the irony. She'd entered that gym believing in cryoran physical superiority, only to discover that true strength lay in vulnerability, in the courage to question one's beliefs, in the willingness to reach across boundaries. She had broken her hand on John's abs of steel, but in the process, they had broken something far more significant, the barriers between worlds that had seemed insurmountable. And from those broken pieces, they were building something new and beautiful, one day at a time. What shall we name the child? John asked, breaking her reverie. Naira smiled. Something that honors both worlds. I think a name that can belong to either species, yet transcends both. Like its parents, John observed. Like its future, Naira corrected, her eyes on the distant stars, where countless worlds awaited the new paradigm they were creating. As the station rotated gently through space, they stood together at the precipice of a new era, an orange-skinned alien and a steel-abbed human, unlikely architects of an interstellar peace that had begun with a single punch.